is a
The word of the day is shock value. What is shock value? It's a ruse, a creative shortcut, a gimmick, if you will, that mediocre writers use in order to mask the insubstantiality of their work, and unfortunately, it is also one of the more popular tools ever to be abused in fiction. When Marquis de Sade came up with the concept of sadism, he also created the idea of a form of spectacle that would rely solely on being as nasty and shocking as humanly possible. Except, in the Marquis' period of time, the 1700s, sadism was a loud shout against the hypocritical moral restraints of society. It served as a vehicle to convey specific messages and as a form of protest. Nowadays, however, whatever the Sade started has become the basic premise for every work of gratuitous exploitation ever made. A very specific genre or style that wants to impress us by showing us quote-unquote strong imagery for the sake of quote-unquote shock value alone. Whether it's the out-of-nowhere ending of an already awful show, a series about cartoon animals dying horribly for fun only to get real old real fast when the novelty inevitably wears off, or just a particularly unwatchable episode of Family Guy. The point is, ultra-violence, mean-spirited and dark comedy, twist endings and the such like are only effective if they have something to communicate to their audience. If their only reason to exist is to be quote-unquote shocking, then they are just wasting everyone's time, like a bad fanfiction. And speaking of bad fanfictions, let us not talk about this one. Let us instead discuss about an interesting product that was partially inspired by it.
Love for me is like you meet somepony, but you don't want to murder them.
my body is a
In light of the previous argument, Ask Pinkamena Diane Pie is an emblematic example of how to implement shocking imagery and dark humor in a context that makes clever use of them. It's a disturbing, psychotic, sadistic, not safe for work delving into the mind of a serial murderer / cannibal / rapist / skin tailor that drowns herself in a dark and uninviting atmosphere from start to finish. It also features torture porn, grand guignol, and this. So why, oh why, is it worth reading? Because it has an actual meaning and the means to make it resonate. First off, being a Tumblr blog, the comic takes full advantage of the typical formula for this type of interactive web comics. Fans asking questions, the main character answering through the comic itself, to actually point out the very disturbing nature of the web itself, in which everything boils down to a bunch of disturbed people having disturbing threads about ways to kill off cartoon ponies. Whether intentionally or not, the blog manages to cleverly and subtly satirize on the internet itself being the epicenter of everything exploitable. That speculation aside, the meatier reason why Ask Pinkamena is an interesting read is because, again, we get to delve into the mind of the crazed murdering equine and perceive the world as she does. She suffers from depression and, from her own standpoint, the only way to cure it is to feed the monster that lives inside her by slaughtering other ponies. The skin tailoring and baking are just a hobby. She enjoys every minute of her activities and shares the details with the world, holding the fourth wall camera in the process. She gets an apprentice in Scootaloo, and she gets steadily less depressed by sharing her dark passenger with a close friend. Then there are the emotional times, in which she has a moment of self-awareness and drowns in regret, only to resume her regular activities later on. There's beauty to be found inside the gruesomeness and the gore, subtle vibes of psychological decay intertwined with honestly portrayed feelings. The friendship between Pinkamena and Scootaloo feels genuine and endearing in the context of their own twisted little world, a world that we, self-proclaimed sane people, could never understand. Everything is conveyed through the simple yet strong and expressive end drawings, reflecting the alien claustrophobic unpleasantness of Pinky's world. The ending is also brilliant, both acknowledging the tragedy of the characters' nightmare-filled mental condition and their longing for each other as a means to survive from their own inner monsters. In conclusion, Ask Pinkamena Diane Pie is dark, violent, unpleasant, grotesque. Why would you do that there, cartoon ponies? Thumbs down, not recommendable, Fluttershy no! And you will not probably read it anyway. But unlike other quote-unquote shocking things, it is not a waste of your time.
Sweet dreams, Tumbler.